Our next presenter is Paul Rimmer. He's a sculpture conservation technician from the National Galleries of Scotland. He'll be talking on a crating case study called Please Don't Touch.
Hello, my name is Paul Rimmer. I'm a sculpture conservation technician for the National Galleries of Scotland in Edinburgh. I'd like to talk to you today about a recent project I completed on the hyperrealist sculpture A Girl, 2006, by Ron Mueck. This large sculpture by Mueck measures just over 5 meters in length and weighs in at 360 kilograms. It captures a new delivered baby and a first glimpse of the surrounding world. Mueck exploits scale to affect viewers' perception of his sculptures in creating this gigantic newborn baby. He uses scale as an expressive device to enhance and bring to the fore both the trauma and the miracle of birth. The sculpture consists of a fiberglass shell, approximately 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. The main structure is finished with polyester resin, with acrylic varnish and acrylic paint applied. Where the form meets the floor, there is an edge, making an opening in the bottom section. This curved form makes a structure that is strong, but for extra support, particularly laterally, an aluminium armature was constructed inside. A 3-inch box section bar runs the entire length, from inside of the foot, through the neck, until the top of the head. Attached to this main beam, 3 by 1 inch box sections are bolted, running at diagonal angles both horizontally and vertically. The whole aluminium structure has held in place with fiberglass. The sculpture can be lifted by this bottom edge, but some parts should be avoided. The umbilical cord should never be touched, as it was made separately and then attached to the belly. The lower hand should not be used to lift. This too was cast separately and attached later. It is firmly fixed, but lifting would cause undue stress on the joint. The hair should also be avoided. The work came into the collection with an existing crate that provided adequate protection for the object while in transit. But given its size and weight, getting it from the truck into the venue posed some interesting problems to solve, as you can see. However, the main issue was unpacking the work from its crate and then moving it onto a separate plinth, which required excessive and awkward handling by a team of technicians, as some parts of the work must be avoided, as mentioned. The install started with the removal of one side panel and the head end of the crate, as the other two were fixed. The artwork was then pulled forward on 4 timber slides to allow technicians to get into the crate behind the object. Next, the artwork was lifted out of the crate and moved on to support stands. Occasionally, this meant the artwork had to be carried for some distance, sometimes balanced on wheels, and even squeezed into a lift. Next, the timber slides which were bolted onto the aluminium support had to be removed. This required technicians to work directly under the artwork. Once the timber slides were removed, the work was again lifted and carried onto the display plinth and placed onto further timber battens so the artwork could be maneuvered into its final display position on the plinth. Then the last and final lift to remove the timber battens. This method raised conservation concerns for the vulnerable surface of the work, as the technicians were in direct contact with the object, and the safety of the installation team having to awkwardly lift, move, and lower the artwork several times. The challenge, therefore, was to devise a display system that would eliminate any need to touch the surface of the work at all. An interesting challenge, I think you'll agree. I started to think of how to move and display the large object without touching it. I broke it down to the simplest solution I could think of. Could I make the base of the crate the plinth? The plinth, which is not a stipulation of the artist but provides a valuable safety barrier between the artwork and the viewer, was considerably larger than the base of the crate. it was agreed that the larger historical plinth dimensions used in past installations would be maintained. So given the difference in size, I had to come up with a solution for that. So a plan was made and the construction began. Firstly, a new crate base was made to the same size as the original, as I intended to use the other original parts of the crate carcass. I then constructed 4 extension pieces to increase the footprint, 2 large detachable side sections and 2 shorter sections for the head and foot ends, with the intent to integrate the display plinth components into the crate to form a reusable kit. The 2 side sections were fit inside the crate walls. Unfortunately, it was not possible to fit the 2 smaller parts inside, so the decision was made to house them in a separate crate which would be attached on top once assembled. Having made the new plinth, the next step was to find a way to secure the artwork onto the base and to provide cushioning for the artwork during transportation. I made 5 by 50 removable plastozoite foam supports, which were covered in Tyvek, and placed them at the optimum points to support the work over its length. Now that the need to physically lift and move the artwork, as previously mentioned, was removed, the second challenge was to come up with a solution to take the artwork from its transport position, sitting on foam supports, into its display position, sitting on the plinth. I needed something that could be integrated to hold the artwork in position and to help removal of the foam supports. The obvious solution: motorcycle jacks. I researched to find something that would be small enough to hidden inside the artwork, but with enough capacity to lift the work safely. I chose to position 2 jacks equally to spread the load and to utilize the fixing points that used in the original aluminium beam. Next, I had to set the jacks into the surface of the base because I had planned to access the jacking point from beneath, which required welding support brackets onto the jack and also manufacture an extension to the jack so it could be operated in a position that would be hidden from view and accessed from the side. The 2 jacks are operated with 2 standard socket ratchets. A 2-person synchronized lift is the preferred method. Once the artwork is raised above the height of the foam supports, they can be removed. And then the work is lowered slowly into the display position, resting on the plinth. With the work complete, the crate is now assembled. As mentioned before, the 2 large plinth components, as you can see, were packed inside of the crate, running the entire length of the crate. And the 2 smaller end components are packed in a separate crate on top. This also contained a first aid kit with ratchets, spare bolts, paint, etc. So now it was time to test my theory with a real-life install. This was pretty nerve-wracking, I can tell you. We hadn't had time or resources to do a full practice run before this point. And it was all on to me to make this work. The first venue to test this new improved method was in Finland. After an epic 4-day road trip, we set to unpacking. I had also written a draft step-by-step installation guide to accompany the work. This was a working document, as I planned to use the images from this first install, and any improvements or issues could be added to the final document. After removing the top of the crate, the orientation of the artwork can be seen. The crate can be now moved into its final position within the space. The sides are then lowered and the plinth components can now be removed. Next, the artwork is jacked up to enable the transit pads to be removed and then lowered into its final position. The 4 plinth sides can now be attached, bolted onto the crate base from beneath. Then removable face plates are clipped into place all the way around. And there it is, the final finished product. No installation staff injured, and more importantly, The whole artwork installed without being touched by a single hand. Thank you for listening. A lot of people here.
Thank you, Simon. I'm in the back with a virtual question. Are there seams on the top of the plinth? Are there seams? Is it a seamless top?
Unfortunately, yeah, there is seams. In hindsight, we could have come up with a better solution. We're still kind of trying to come up with a solution, but with it being a kit form, there is seams. They are butt jointed at the moment. There is a thought I might try and joint them a bit better or make some sort of seamless joint, but it's always been a kind of compromise. But yeah, they are filled and kind of painted if needs be. It depends on the floor, because sometimes, depending on where it is, the floors are uneven, so you get different levels and all that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of filling and that kind of stuff. But it's a good payoff that you don't have to physically lift the thing anymore. So that was the main idea, that nobody had to lift this from one place to another. So for the work being not touched, I mean, it's a good compromise.
Yeah, it's a great, beautiful job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering, when it's being transported, the foam runners that it rests on, what kind of foam was that?
It's plastozoite. It's LD45.
Okay.
Density, yeah.
Thank you.
And to speak further on that, the timbers that it's attached to from underneath, those timbers are attached to the crate in what fashion?
Which timbers was that, sorry?
When it's traveling, it's riding on the wood, correct? And the wood's attached to the sculpture?
It's more or less sitting, when it's traveling, it's sitting on the foam. So you let the jacks down and it's not, there's no timber underneath it.
So what's holding the sculpture in place in the crate?
There's brackets on the jacks. I don't think you saw them in those pictures, but there was original, they had plywood pads underneath, you know, when they had them on the original sliders. So I used the original fixing points, and there's timber pads underneath to make up the gap. So we just attached to those. So we didn't want to start drilling new holes and all that kind of stuff in the armature, so we utilized 2 points out of 4 at the best points to fix to those original fixings.
Thank you.
No problem.
We have another virtual question. What are the weight and dimensions of the crate?
That's a good question. It's not that much bigger than the baby, to be honest. I mean, the baby's just over 5 meters by about 5 feet wide. But it was constructed before I did this work, and we wanted to keep it as small as possible because just to get it into a building. You can't, ideally we could have made the crate the same size as the plinth, but no one would be able to get it in the building. So we need to make it accessible as possible. So keeping the crate as small as possible. So it's just over, 5.5, 6 meters length by just over 5 feet wide. So it's, as you can see, it's really packed in there. It was made by Constantine in the UK. So I kept to those dimensions.
Do you know how much the baby weighs?
It's about 360 kilos.
Okay.
Yeah, but with all the components, I mean, it's over 1,000 kilos when it's packed. So it is considerably heavier, but as I said before, yeah, I mean, you can't take it out the crate and carry it in a lift anymore, but that was kind of the point of doing it, you know what I mean? So you don't have to touch it at all. But that's an interesting question, how do you move something without touching it? And that's kind of what I came up with.
Great, thanks.
Since the jacks are embedded into the pedestal, do you have any access to have a look if there's any mechanical breaks or any parts that have been falling during transports before the install?
Yeah, you can see it. I mean, it does go up quite high. We don't really need to because we just bring it up those 2 inches to remove them, but you can take it up, so you can see inside. You can't access them from underneath. Yeah, this was a one-off idea. I mean, I just came up with this with many sleepless nights, trying to come up with this idea. I had baby brain for months and months trying to come up with this. You know what I mean? That's what I called it. But yeah, you can see it. I mean, there is a concern, you know, with wear and tear with all of this stuff. So we try and send out either myself or another technician to check it and maintain it, and we do a report of how smoothly all the mechanisms are working, you know what I mean? And then, because it's been out on loan ever since I did this pretty much, it's just traveled the whole of Europe and all that kind of stuff, and it's going to, I think it's going to Rome or something next, so it's because it's too big, we can't store it, so they just send it all around the world. So, you know, there's nowhere to put it, so it's just like, send it somewhere else, so... But yeah, I mean, I'd like to, if I can, because, you know, it's kind of my baby, excuse the pun, but to check it, you know, those kind of things that, you know, a conservator wouldn't necessarily look at. So yeah, it is accessible, but yeah, there's a limit to how much you can see.
Thank you. This is a great answer.
Okay, that's it.